Okay, everybody, another day, we're still alive. We should remember that. Let's talk a bit about impermanence, because it's something we just so take for granted. So anyway, here we are. Now, Mary wanted something today. God knows what Mary. What did you want, Mary? You had it called something or other. One of your wonderful titles. What was it?
Freestyle, a multi-topic freestyle commentary on the state of mind in present-day culture, a Q&A.
That sounds like what I do every day, isn't it?
More, please, more.
Okay. So, but before okay, good. So let's just say a little prayer, thinking we're going to listen to these teachings so we can take some advice, so we can develop our qualities, so we can benefit others. Bottom line, that's it. I mean, what else? Really, what else? That's the one. So we're going to have our little prayer up there, Mary, or not? Here we go. So the first day we'd offer a mandala. We request the Buddha for the teachings. Like anything, you go into a shop and you request an ice cream. You don't assume they give it for nothing. If you go to a friend's house for dinner, you bring something. So here we're just, the offering is where the merit is for us. Buddha's happy. He doesn't care. He's happy to give teachings day and night. But we need to create the cause. We need to really want it. If you really want an ice cream, you won't go in with no money. If you really want an ice cream, you'll come and you want to give. So it's like that. We want to give the whole universe to the Buddha as a request for the teachings. So think of it as an amazing, blissful place full of the most gorgeous things that beings use and make them happy, and offer these to the Buddha. And then imagine he very happily accepts our offering. Sajipa ki jugshing metog tramri rablingji ni de genpadi sange jingdu mikte urwagi drokun namjag jing la chepa shog idam guru ratna mandala kam nilyatayami. And now this reminding ourselves of our reliance on the Buddha and this aspiration, this marvelous motivation for sitting here together on this Sunday morning, or wherever you are, maybe Sunday night in Australia, maybe, I don't know what, who knows where with the world. Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho badu dagni kyap suchi dagi chönyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drupa shog. Sangye charang soke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyap suchi dagi chönyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drupa shog. Sangye charang soke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyap suchi dagi chönyen gi personam ki drola penchir sangye drupa shog. All right, thank you, Mary. Well, impermanence, I'll start with something and we can ask questions. So, but again, remember, think about it, why do we listen to these viewpoints? It's a really interesting thing. Why are we listening to Buddha's viewpoints? Like if we go to mathematics class, think about this, it's very obvious, but we don't connect that with spiritual teachings. Why do you listen to mathematics? Well, if you go to a botany class, if it's a class, why do you go? It's really obvious, isn't it? You want to get something out of it. You want to do something as a result. And we really understand it when it comes to these clever things with our intellect, but with spiritual teachings, we get very confused. So not logically, at the moment, we walk into the botany class, and the reason we're going is because we don't know, we don't have thoughts about botany in our mind. We're ignorant. We don't have an understanding of the reality of gardens. We have ignorance right now. We might have just simply the simple ordinary ignorance that doesn't know how gardens work, and that's pretty easy to fix. But this is what's the point here. So first of all, no, the ordinary ignorance is I don't know. So you go to the botany class and you fill your mind, think about this, with new thoughts, new viewpoints, new concepts. And it's from a person who called a botanist who's been proven to be true. It's a person who didn't make up botany. They have observed the growing things that come up with these come up with concepts that have presented how gardens work. So that's proven to be true. So you have confidence, you've checked on these teachers, you've seen their gardens. So you go, I'd like to have a garden like that. So that's why you go to botany class. And what do? You think about this. What you're getting is information to fill your mind. That's the point. You're filling your thoughts with new viewpoints. So these viewpoints, You've checked up on the sources. So you're confident that the viewpoints coming out of the mouth of the teacher are viewpoints that are, listen to this, in sync with reality. These are viewpoints that are labeled botany, or whatever you want to call it, you know, and that they are in sync with reality. Because if you follow those viewpoints, if you learn those theories and you go out into the garden and you do what they say, you follow the instructions, you'll get what they said. That we understand. We call it science. We call it making a cake. We call it learning the piano. We call it all the brilliant things we do in our world. Even the simplest thing, you know, Rosanna's a librarian. She had to learn a few skills. So how did she do that? She went to a class. People told her about librarian thoughts. She internalized those thoughts and then she put them into practice. We get this, but when it comes to spiritual practice, we are like ridiculous. So many people go to Buddhist classes. Oh, I don't want to listen. This is just theory. I want to practice. That's like saying you go to the botany class. Oh, I don't want to listen to all these boring thoughts. I just want to grow flowers. Well, yeah, mate, one step at a time. Fill your head with the thoughts first, then you'll know how to grow flowers. So this is because we've got these concepts in spirituality, especially Buddhism, that meditation is this magical technique. There's something magical about closing your eyes. I mean, the misconceptions about meditation are beyond belief. Okay, people can make up what they like. You can make up your own meditation. You can define the word as you wish. You can. Buddha does not own it. But if you want to do Buddhist meditation, you better know what you're talking about. So what the word meditate in Buddhism is very fascinating, in Tibetan, is the verb to familiarize. Well, what does it mean? Well, you're familiarizing your mind with Buddha's views about reality, which means how to get happy and how to stop suffering. So when you go to botany class, you're filling your mind with the botanist's views about how to get a garden. You've got to check. That's the reason you familiarize your mind. You familiarize your mind with botany thoughts. Well, here what are you familiar? Now, this is the point. Now, what are you familiarizing your mind with? Because we think meditation is losing all your thoughts. We think meditation is relaxation. We think meditation is an alternative to a pill. We think meditation is having some kind of experience. We have these misconceptions. I mean, and we can't get past those misconceptions. So what a Buddhist is a person who wants to end up as a Buddha. That's the end result. That's a Mahayana person. You end up as a Buddha. So what's a Buddha? You get rid of all the rubbish and full of all the goodness. That word, remember, I always quote it, the etymology of that word. Bud implies you've rid the mind, you've pulled out all the weeds. You've rid the mind of all the rubbish. Da means you've grown all the flowers. Your mind is now full of virtue. That's what a Buddha is. So that's the job you want. If you want a garden full of flowers and no weeds, you better learn to listen to the theories of how to do it. It's very practical. That's what you do as a Buddhist. So you've got to listen to the instructions. But because we think it's dogma, because we think someone's shoving it down your throat and they're forcing you to believe it, which is how we think of religion. Oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm allowed to think what I like. I mean, we're just very foolish. I'm not going to go to a botany class. That sounds like dogma. He's forcing me to believe what he says. Well, if you want a garden, he is. Yeah. But you follow it. But we have these misconceptions about spirituality. And I'm not being rude, but it's because we've got religions, that's the view we have in our world about, that assert a creator. And indeed, you can't prove a creator to be right. That would mean you'd become God as well. And you can't talk like that. So it's different in Buddhism. It's got the smell of religion. It's got the appearance of religion, but it's not the same in the sense that you've got to do the work and you become the Buddha. You've got to change your thoughts. That means you've got to know what a Buddhist thinks like. What does a Buddha think like? What the Lam Rim is simply the presentation of botany thoughts. It's a presentation from a clever botanist of what you think to get a garden. Here, everything you have to think to become a Buddha. So that's what practice means. You listen first, you contemplate the meaning, you try to make sense of all these things, and then you internalize it in this brilliant technique called single point of concentration, where your mind is stable and focused, and you can get the experience of it in a very quick way. It'll quickly become experience. You'll remember it quickly, and you'll quickly become a Buddha. So 99% of us don't have single point of concentration. So we have to do with the conceptual level, but slowly with practice, it gradually trickles down and trickles into our experience. So it's listening, thinking about, and then internalizing it, just like being a gardener. That's it. That's what being a Buddhist is. So when they say, Dalai Lama always says you must study the teachings, that's what he means. But we have this idea, it's like you wake up in this life and you like botany. You love flowers. It's good enough to love flowers. You don't have to become a botanist. But the point is here, we're talking about stopping suffering and getting happiness. We're talking about stopping suffering and getting happiness. That's the garden we want. So you can like the idea of that. You can enjoy looking at other people who've done the job. You can enjoy listening to the Dalai Lama, who's said to be the one who's become a Buddha. You can look at gardens and appreciate roses. But if you don't know how to get a rose, you're in trouble. You've got to rely on other people to give you roses. Well, you can't. So here, you can't. It's not enough just to look at other people who are happy. It's not enough to look at other people who are not suffering. You want to become not suffering, and you want to become happy. So you'd better learn Buddha's botany, baby. That's why that's what a Buddhist means. So you don't have to necessarily. You don't have to commit. Some of you maybe come to these teachings because you're listening and thinking about whether you like the Buddhist view. That's totally appropriate, and that's the necessary first step. That is absolutely vital. You do your due diligence. You check up on the teachers. You check up on the teachings. You check up on Buddha. You look around. You start to become comfortable. And it might not be your garden. You might not want that. You might prefer Jesus, and that's completely your business. No one's telling you what you should do. So once you have listened and you have decided, that's when you formalize it and you pay your fee and you start studying botany. That's when you take refuge and learn to live in the vows, and then you start to practice. You know, that's it. That's the approach. I hope that makes sense. So because we live at the intellectual level, you've got to start at the intellectual level, the conceptual level. Remember, we've got conceptual, and we have the subtler level of mind, which we don't even posit in modern psychology or neuroscience, but which Buddha certainly does. That's his unique approach. And we eventually can access the subtle level. That's when we can quickly get the work done, because the mind is more brilliant, more focused, more capable. Right now, we're scattered, you know. I mean, people who've got a really focused mind, you know, can listen to one teaching and then memorize it. I mean, because their mind is so brilliant. I mean, we're not like that. Goes in one ear and out the other. That's okay. It stays in the mind. It doesn't go astray. It just doesn't come. We just can't access it immediately, but it's all there. So what's Buddha's very first teaching? You want to think of it this way. If you look at the Lam Rim, the very first teaching, the very first presentation of reality that Buddha gives us is that things are impermanent. But this is the fascinating point now about the Buddha's approach to ignorance and the botanist. Let's say you've got regular, okay, remember like we talk about the three problems in the mind, the three main delusions. The root one is called ignorance, simply called ignorance, the regular word ignorance. So clearly it's a very specific ignorance, and it's ignorance about how things exist. Well, when you go into a botany class, that's what you have. You start being ignorant. You start not knowing botany. But that's easy to fix. You could become a botanist in a couple of years if you try really hard. Well, if we had that kind of ignorance about reality, about the universe, about how things exist, which is Buddha's expertise, not gardens, about happiness and suffering and its causes, that's his expertise. If you had ignorance, the regular ignorance, merely didn't know how to get happy and merely didn't know how to not suffer, then we could become enlightened in a couple of years. I would think so, because we're very intelligent. But this is the problem. This is a really important point to understand. The ignorance we've got is like double trouble ignorance. There's a whole extra component of this ignorance. And this is why it is so painful and hard to internalize these teachings and make them our own experience. And that ignorance, not only do you not know how botany works, but you have believed for countless lives another view about what botany is. And you are completely convinced it's right, but it's totally the opposite to truth. So in reality, you're desperately trying to get flowers and you're desperately trying to stop getting weeds, but you keep getting more weeds and not enough flowers, and you wonder why. You get a few flowers for a while, but then they disappear. Then you keep more weeds coming. You keep sowing, you're keeping thinking you're sowing flowers, but you keep getting more weeds, and the gardens are more of a disaster, life after life. That's samsara. And that's because not only do you not know how to pull out weeds, stop suffering. Not only do we not know how to grow flowers, get happy, we've got a completely opposite view. The very things that we believe will bring us flowers, happiness, are exactly, in fact, what cause our suffering, what bring more weeds in the future. So no wonder we all go crazy. We're bashing our heads against brick walls. So basically what Buddha's saying is we don't realize that things are impermanent. Not only do we not realize things are impermanent, we believe the opposite. That's why it's so hard. It's not that we just merely don't know that things are impermanent. We believe exactly the opposite. We do not merely not know that cakes won't make us happy. We believe they will. Not only do we not know that we don't have an inherent nature, we believe we have. Every single thing that Buddha presents, we believe the opposite. So we've got to strip away the lies. It's like ripping off your skin. To strip away the lies we have believed in and are fanatically holding on to like vampires for countless lives, Buddha says. And that's because we don't understand reality, and we believe the opposite of reality. That's the kind of ignorance that we've got, and that's the tragic ignorance. You know, not only do we not know reality, we believe the opposite of reality, and we bash our head against brick walls for eons, Buddha says. This is the tragedy. So when we listen to how things are impermanent, what we've got to do is we're fighting, we have to fight with the view that believes desperately, frantically, that everything is set in stone. And the Buddha is saying, merely not knowing about impermanence is bad enough ignorance, and is bad enough to cause you suffering. But to believe the opposite and to believe you're right, this is the worst of the worst of the worst, most intense suffering of ignorance. He's not being fundamentalist. It's like coming from compassion. His teachings are coming from compassion. We've got to realize that we're causing our own suffering by our misconceptions. That's what he's saying. That's why when you look at Buddhism, there are different doorways into Buddhism. Absolutely, it is a presentation of ethics, incredible ethics. It is a presentation, absolutely, of how to stop suffering and get happiness. And it is a presentation, for sure, of how to stop being ignorant and how to get wisdom. But they all come to the same thing. That's the point. That's brilliant. Because the method to get happy is to get wisdom. The method to stop suffering is to get wisdom. That's the point. And why? Very simple for the Buddha. The extent to which we are caught up in these misconceptions about reality, impermanence, cause and effect, our capacity for compassion and wisdom, that's the essence of it. The extent to which we're caught up in misconceptions about all of that is the extent to which we suffer. That's the point in Buddhism. It's just very fascinating. And we can prove it pretty quickly. You know, if you merely don't know your husband's cheating on you, that's kind of like we say, ignorance is bliss, we say. That's that kind of ignorance. But if you really believe he is cheating on you when he's not, then you're in serious trouble. Like you go mad. And he can tell, no, I'm not, Robina, no, I'm not. Yeah, and you believe he is. That's the nightmare. So you believe, you've got $5 note and you believe it's 50. I mean, you believe for so long it's 50, and it even appears to you to be 50, and you even though someone tells you it's only 5, you think they're ridiculous. You're convinced, fanatically obsessed with the fact that it's 50. It appears 50. You go out to spend it, and you get 5 worth, and you're devastated every time. And you try again tomorrow, and you try again tomorrow, and you try again next life. That's how idiotic our ignorance is. We're addicted to our misconceptions, and they are so deep in our mind that things even appear to us to be permanent. They appear to us. The cake appears to be the cause of my happiness. You know, the person who's mean to me appears to be the cause of my suffering. I appear to have an inherent I. These lies are so primordial in our mind. So it takes a lot of courage, confidence, first intellectual, to even want to listen. But you've got to understand why you're doing it. You want to get happy and stop suffering. That's the bottom line for the Buddha. And he's talking about Buddhahood is the ultimate happiness. And that's our natural potential. So, you know, and the other thing is this, we make this massive distinction between philosophical views that we think are materialist, and then religious ones. We just think they're a bunch of wacko ideas that you have to believe. We really have that view, and that is the view of materialism. The philosophical materialists have this incredible arrogance. The religion is just made up by idiots. That's the real view. That's a real view. And this is arrogance of these idiot people believing in creators, people believing in reincarnation. They're just plain foolish, you know. So we've got these views very deep inside us. So we've got to have the courage to look, you know, because I mean, whether you think you're a communist, an Australian Aboriginalist, an American Indianist, whatever the views in the universe are of the peoples over the centuries, they're all just got their own views about reality. I mean, if I listen to some of the views about the Australian Aboriginals, they're so complex, so abstract, I wouldn't understand what they're talking about. But there's viewpoints. They're all viewpoints that peoples have cultivated. Viewpoints starting from the mind. So Buddhism is just a viewpoint. And it's up to us to decide if we think it is in sync with reality, based on research and your due diligence and checking the teachers and the Buddha and the Dalai Lama and the books that are written. And there's a lot of rubbish written, so you've got to be intelligent. Then you decide to start internalizing it for yourself and proving it one step at a time. You know, you can't prove E = MC squared yet, but you want to be like Einstein, you start with 1 + 1. And when you prove 1 + 1 is true, you get some confidence. Wow, that's true. I've got a grade 2 now. And you prove it each step of the way. And this taking time to prove all these things to be true, but we can begin to prove empty. We can begin to prove impermanence. That's enough for anybody with half a brain. So you start with that, and it gives you some confidence. Well, Buddha says things are impermanent. Wow, so far so good. I've proved that. Then you go to the next one, until eventually you proved everything, and then you become a Buddha. And as the Dalai Lama says, if you go along at some point and you do prove that Buddha's wrong, you get to say 17th grade, and you prove he's wrong there, you must reject him. Of course you do. You thank him for the last 17 grades. You don't chuck it out. He didn't chuck out all the Hindu views when he became a Buddhist, when he got to his own conception about self. That's where he diverged. He didn't, because he accepted those views. He proved them to be true, but he got to the point where it came to self. He proved that wasn't true, so he diverged. So it's up to us, you know. We have to do all this work ourselves. But we have to start having some intellectual confidence first. It's up to us. So let's look at how impermanence is true. Things change. We go like, duh, okay, I know that, Buddha. Give us something more intelligent. But what he's saying is, we might intellectually understand because we are clever. But experientially, we do not know things are impermanent. And we've got to see because, you know, this mind, if this mind is full of all these misconceptions, they collude with each other to support their lies, you know. So it seems to me, if you think about attachment, which is this massive lie, believing that the delicious things out there will make us happy, believing that it is more delicious than it really is, and believing that when I get it, I'll get happy. There's some semblance of truth there. We've talked about that technology. But because we so desperately want, attachment is the one that runs the show, but because we're so, like, you know, I always quote Nicole Kidman, I like that woman, I quote this interview she did, it was so stark and so clear, when she was with Tom Cruise. At the end of the interview, she said, "We will be together until we're 80. Now, we understand that. You know, if even just forget a beautiful husband, but if things are going nicely today, if things are going nicely today, I woke up this morning and nothing much had changed. The tree was still out the back. The roof hadn't fallen in. The place wasn't overrun by rapists. Nothing had much changed. So we lull ourselves into believing, oh, wow, this is going to keep going. Because when you attack, like we talked yesterday, because my attachment's getting what it wants. You know, the weather's calm, the house is pleasant, the food is nice, the roses are lovely in the vase, everything's fairly clean, there's not too many ants. So I just lull because my attachment's getting what it wants, pleasant feelings, because everything is nice. I lull myself into believing it's going to keep being that way. So I assume when I wake up tomorrow morning, it's going to be the same. That's why we are so shocked when things change. When suddenly you hear that your husband's left you, you suddenly hear you've lost your job, that, you know, suddenly everything's changing. Why do you think we get shocked? We think we're shocked because Tom left her. No, because you believed he wouldn't. Because why? Because it's nice today. So we assume it'll be nice tomorrow. That's just a plain lie. That's attachment is getting what it wants. We so much can't stand the thought of not having what attachment wants that we put this other lie on top that thinks it will be forever. Think of us. We know when we're depressed sometimes, and you haven't got a job, and suddenly you find a job or you find a boyfriend, and you kind of like, finally, wow, now everything's going right. Now I've got it. And we think, now I've finally found happiness, we say. And that even the way we say it, we're setting it in stone because we found it. It's attachment's happy, or you're getting what you want. Now it's there, and you set it in stone. You close it and lock the door. Now I've got happiness. We will be together until we're 80, she said. Then what I thought was amazing, the next sentence she said, I'll never forget, she said, and if we won't be, I will be devastated. That was so intelligent to even consider the possibility. So then we think, well, if I'm supposed to think that Tom will leave me today, then we think, well, why bother? This is really an important point. We become nihilistic. If everything's going to change, then if my house won't be lovely tomorrow, then why should I enjoy it today? Why not just sit back and wait for the worst to happen? That's the nihilistic conclusion. Completely mistaken. The Buddha's telling us, which is not even, he didn't make it up, he's just observed it, is that everything dynamically shifts moment by moment. And so in Buddhism, there's these teachings that call just like gross impermanence. Husbands leave you, houses change, you die, you get sick one day, things change. That's gross impermanence, which is evident to everybody. But there's a subtler level, and this is where we could almost confuse this one with emptiness. It's a much more sophisticated level. And this level, subtle impermanence, can only be cognized in subtle meditation. And it's the nature of things in their actual nature, that everything that's impermanent You know, you can do a deep analysis about it, even like a minute or a thing or a cup or something. It's constantly changing millisecond by millisecond. And the very fact of something's coming into existence in 1 millisecond implies it will go out of existence the next millisecond. In other words, you can never, the more subtle you get, you can't ever pinpoint this subtle kind of unchanging thing that makes up the components of the universe. And this is getting us to the understanding of dependent arising, you know. So things in their nature, nothing can set in stone, nothing can not change, nothing in the normal world of impermanence, the mind, nothing. It's constantly changing. Even if, you know, you think about time, how we have these brilliant, like in the Olympics now, you have these, not just Olympics, in all the sports, you have these brilliant stopwatches that can divide seconds into milliseconds. There must be I don't know how tiny the moments are. And we keep, I mean, you know, a thousandth of a second. Can't even imagine it, right? But we think you're going to finally, if you keep getting smaller, you're finally going to get to this fundamental building block of time. And there's going to be a moment of time that's the tiniest, and then time is made up of all those. No, you do that analysis, you can't even find that. And in fact, it's like emptiness. You can confuse it for emptiness. You can't pinpoint anything that is set in stone. So this is a powerful meditation to do. But the broader one is evident. Things change moment by moment. But we can't stand change. Look how we can't stand the change of this person. Look how as we get older, you can't stand what you see in the mirror. You know, you can't believe it. That's why we're so desperate to make the skin smooth and take away the wrinkles away and the double chins, because we're frantic to look like we're not permanent, that we are permanent, because we can't stand the idea of things changing. Well, I mean, no, we can't stand the idea of the things we're attached to changing. We love the idea of the ugly things changing. Now, this is the tragedy. This is the trouble. This is why our minds are so extreme. So you can imagine, again, with Nicole, and I always use her as an example. I kind of have to be careful because I think she's a gorgeous person, like any of us. You really believe because you're in love today, everything's perfect, the kids are divine, the couch is new, everything's beautiful, the weather's lovely, and we don't realize it because we can't stand it to change. We can't bear the thought that it would ever change. So of course it will change. It doesn't have to be that your husband leaves you, but something's going to happen. You'll love each other less in 5 years. Things will be ugly. The new children will come along. You'll have a terrible child. Everything will look different. The fantasy won't be fulfilled. So then what happens is, or especially if the husband does leave you, then what happens is the bubble bursts, the fantasy collapses, you crash to despair, and now look what happens. Now you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's why you kill yourself. Because you think the despair and the ugly thing is permanent and will never change. This is the nightmare we go in. This is just one example of the misconceptions we have, grasping at things as permanent, unchanging. So when things are gorgeous, you're over the top and completely hysterical, can't believe it, you found happiness, it's all permanent and divine, and then it collapses because it will change naturally. It doesn't have to be a dramatic change. It can be a subtle change, which is what it normally is, you know. You don't have to get cancer and die. You'll just get old gradually and die gradually. That's change, and we can't stand it because attachment only wants lovely, delicious, fresh, new things. It's just attachment. Attachment wants everything to be delicious, you know. So we've got all these lies, and they all collude together beautifully. They all work hand in hand to continue to deceive us. So our own thoughts deceive us. Buddha's saying, honey, this is why we suffer. So they say, the Lamas all say that when you really begin to some genuine realization of impermanence, this is the foundation one. Everything from there is easier. Everything. Your mind is more stable. You're much more powerful. You're more content. You're more fulfilled. You're less neurotic. You're less angry. You're less attached. That's just realizing things are changing. Living, in other words, going with the flow, as we say, you know. Going with the flow, that's what it means. So because we can't stand the thought of change, then every time change happens, we have a panic attack. I mean, that's what suffering is. So we don't suffer because your beautiful cup breaks. We suffer because we thought it shouldn't. And we believe it won't. I mean, you're setting yourself up for trouble, believing the $5 is 50. That's what we're doing all the time. But at such subtle levels, we don't even notice, you know. This is why we suffer. This is why we suffer. The external conditions play a massive role, and this is the part that's shocking, but technically they are secondary. They are the things that trigger You know, the cup breaking. If your cup doesn't break, then you just live in the fantasy land of a lovely permanent cup. But when it breaks, that's the catalyst for the misconception to become stark to you. You see your $5 note, you just think it's 50 and you relax. But as soon as you start to spend it, then you get disappointed. That's when, so the $5 note not being 50 is merely the catalyst for your suffering. We're lulled into believing all these lies, and then so in other words, the only time you ever see attachment is when it doesn't get what it wants, because we're so addicted to getting what we want. And then I said it brings us, like I've told you, it brings us hubris. I wake up in the morning, oh, aren't I lucky? Look at this beautiful weather. Look at the lovely roses. Look at the lovely life. Look at the money in the bank. Aren't I lucky? Aren't I fortunate? This arrogance comes. Look at all these vegetables in the garden. Aren't I lucky? Come, look at my beautiful vegetables. You keep eating them, and you look at my beautiful vegetables. You forget to bloody plant more. That's the grasping that happens because of grasping at permanence and attachment, and you don't have this common sense that it's a fruit of your past virtue. So if every time you see a beautiful home and you've got food in the fridge and money in the bank, do not take it for granted. Don't think you're lucky. That's arrogance. It's because of your past generosity. So you better be more generous, baby, right this second. Keep the garden going. As soon as you pick up a vegetable to grow it, to eat it, you better grow another one, because it's dynamic. It's cause and effect. It's karma. That's the attitude to have, you know. But we're so addicted to nice things, which is attachment. We get lulled into this stupidity, this hubris, this arrogance, you know. We're our own worst enemies. My mother used to say, you're your own worst enemy, Bobsy. It's true, we are. That's what Buddha's telling us. So, okay, if you want questions and things, you better ask me some now. Mary wants me, you ask, got to be question answers. Come on. Any questions?
Hi, hello. Can
Yes,
you hear
who's
me?
that?
Marsha.
Yes. Hi, Marsha, talk to me.
You know, I understand yesterday about handling thoughts as quickly as you can, turning them around as quickly as you can. In this time that we're living in, it's the flood of thoughts coming in and appearances from the media and around us come so quickly.
Yes, it's overwhelming.
I know that's for me. I've tried to limit myself, and then there's that question of wisdom. Like, don't you have to know? You know, you have to know. It's your city. It's your, you know, it's your president. Don't you? Don't you have to make sense of it? But you can't make sense. It's beyond making sense. So I guess turning it off and dwelling on things that are helpful is a better way.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is,
finding that balance.
Yeah, I understand. So reading the news and listening to the news and seeing it on the iPads and the Facebooks and all those things, it's true. But I mean, once you've seen one, if you have the Buddhist view, this is if your view of the presentation of reality is the Buddhist one, and you understand about impermanence and grasping and attachment and anger and jealousy and pride, all the cause of suffering, then you just look one time, you read the news one time, and you do an analysis. You don't have to keep reading. It becomes an addiction, because I mean, what does it mean by knowing what's going on? That's all dependent on which journalists are writing what's going on. It all depends on the mind of the journalists who choose to give us what they think we should know. So we just have to look once at Mr. Trump or any of the politicians, and you can learn. You don't have to look every time. So we get addicted because it's attachment. It's just like food all the time. You keep eating food, or we keep wanting to eat words and thoughts. It becomes an addiction, and then we don't know how to process it properly. So we eat the wrong food and we get fat and sick. So we grab in the wrong thoughts and we don't know how to process them, and then we become depressed or confused. So we've got to know what we can take, what we can handle. But we don't need to keep looking at what's happening. It's good to know that somebody got raped down the road, but we know it's happening all the time. We hear about all these, I mean, like, you know, like in America at the moment with all the race stuff. I mean, with respect to this country, I know what I mean. You know, it's like ancient. It's not really very different. All the people who are right fundamentalists, they've always been around. It's just that now the tide has changed, and many people now are writing about the experience of Black Americans. Before, it was invisible. It was just invisible. The same and worse things happened 50 years ago, 60 years ago, but it wasn't reported. Now you got so many, you know, suddenly it's all changed. So it's suddenly become visible to people. All these videos of police shooting Black people, I'm sorry, that's not changed. It's probably less than before. So it's not as if it's new. Nothing's new. If you read a history book of 1,000 years ago, nothing's new. If you've got the Buddhist analysis, you can see there's jealousy, there's anger, there's ignorance. It's not new. So we have to know what is appropriate to read. And then when we do read it, Marsha, this is the point. You've got the wisdom wing and we've got the compassion wing. So the wisdom wing point of view the work there we have to do. If you read news, if you read anything, the learning is, and this is how I try to approach it, there are two things I need to learn, because the wisdom wing is all about you putting your mind together. So when I read the news, and I read Mr. Trump, let's just say, and it would appear that Mr. Trump lies. It would appear that Mr. Trump grabs ladies by the you-know-what, all these things. You understand? Just the things we read about. So I check, and I go, well, there's attachment, there's lying, there's arrogance, for sure, there's anger, there's vanity. And then I say to myself, I recognize those, every one of them in my mind. When I read about a pedophile, I go, that's attachment and negative karma of addiction to certain activities that are negative. And I'll go, I recognize that. I mightn't be a pedophile. I mightn't be the worst liar, but I recognize the delusions because there's nothing new in anybody. So then I go, and then the second thing I say is to myself, thank you for showing me how not to be. So in other words, everything in the world has to be, the first one has to be a learning for you. That's the wisdom wing.
Thank you.
Learning for you, and you bring it back to yourself and you go, my God, thank you for showing me how it looks. I'm going to keep working on my mind. Then the compassion wing approach is when you check Mr. Trump, there's the lying, let's just say, there's the lying, there's the hubris, there's this. You go, oh my God, I know what that suffering is like. I know what it happens to me. So I can see the suffering is causing him, and I can see the suffering is causing him to cause others. So you have compassion. So that's it. And then if you have these two and you work at your own pace, you'll never get out of control, no matter how bad it gets. But you've got to know what you can handle. You've got to know what you can cope with. You've got to be in charge of your own life and what you need to take in. Otherwise, we just go berserk and get depressed and angry and freaked out, and our mind goes out of control. And we've got to know what we can handle, and we police ourselves. Take yourself at your own pace, Marsha. That's what you must do.
Thank you.
You can't just walk on the court and play with Federer every day if you're only in grade 1. It will make you very depressed. But you play at your own pace with the people who are appropriate, and you can be brave if you get to the point where, like, if suddenly change comes tomorrow and you get COVID-19 and your husband leaves you and you start losing a leg, that's playing with Federer at a big leap. You do your best because it's going to come sometime. You can't complain. You do your best, but you take every day as an example and have the wisdom wing working, learn about your own mind, because there's nothing, Marsha, out there that you will see in any human or dog or animal that you haven't got as a delusion, because the delusions refer to every being. Some are more dramatic, some are more extreme, but because it brings fear, and then we get angry, then we get confused, then we have a panic attack. Do you understand?
I do.
Good, darling.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Make each count.
That's right.
Make everything count for learning.
Absolutely. That's exactly the
Analyze it that way.
That's right, darling. And this is where the Bodhisattva one is very enormous, because the Bodhisattva is the person who's got the wisdom wing down. They see their mind, they know what causes suffering, they've changed themselves. So every time they see suffering, it gives them more courage, not more depressed. They get more enthusiasm. I must never give up. Look at this suffering. I know how to fix it now. I'm going to never give up. And it's that enthusiasm that's the point. This enthusiasm is incredible. That's what we all have to have. Enthusiasm technically means delight in practicing virtue and never giving up for the sake of sentient beings. But if you haven't done much wisdom wing, you can't have that. So you don't force yourself. Do you understand?
I do.
Good, Marsha.
Keep going.
Good.
Keep it up.
Thank you, sweetheart. Who else? Anybody else?
I have a question, Robina.
Yes, Vanessa, darling. Happy to see you. How are you?
Good to see. I'm good. Good.
Good. You're still living in the same place? Las Vegas?
Yeah, Las Vegas.
Everything's okay?
Very hot.
I bet it is. But work's good.
Yeah, everything's good. Just studying for my board. So yeah. My question, Tonglen. So I've been trying to get into Tonglen for probably the last year.
Yes.
And just going over the verses and trying to hold the person that annoys me in a higher place than me. It's been very difficult.
It's incredible practice.
So I there's especially this one person I used to work with who I don't work with anymore, who I tried so hard just to be compassionate, but I still ruminate about how I should have told her or stood up for myself instead of being so compassionate. And I think that being compassionate kind of just enabled her to kind of just roll all over me. So it's like, at what point do I just kind of put that on hold and just stick up for myself?
I understand, Vanessa. This is the tricky part, isn't it? This is the part, I mean, Catherine mentioned this yesterday. This is the one that really is tricky. If you feel that your compassion just simply, as you said, enabled her to be even more mean to you, then clearly you weren't using the right techniques for yourself. It wasn't working for you. So that means with great respect to you, your compassion was mixed with lots of attachment. And that's fine. We can't have perfect compassion that hasn't got attachment until we're highly realized. So we've got to recognize that why you suffered when she continued to be harmful to you, you didn't suffer because you were compassionate, Vanessa. So when you say compassion, what do you mean by that? First of all, what did you mean by you were compassionate for her? What do you exactly mean?
I think when I really think of it, I just didn't want to deal with her. I didn't want the added stress.
I understand, but why when you said you had compassion for her?
I can't compare. Oh, in the sense where I rationale or reason that maybe she's not in a good place.
Okay.
She's just delusional herself, and
but they're true. Both of those are true. They're facts.
Right.
That's why a person might be mean to you. They're facts, but that's fine. But that's what you mean by having compassion, kind of. That's okay. So why did you? So what happened? What would happen then? So how would she be to you?
I'm sorry. What was the last question?
How would she be to you? How would she hurt you?
What would she mean? Just making immature accusations, and we would take exams together, and she would just kind of not really respect my input on our group assignments, and it was kind of everything she said was right and just not really respecting what other people had to say. So
you felt she was arrogant?
She was arrogant. She was insulting.
So to you?
What?
Insulting to you? To
me and other
people. Okay, so what you're saying was there's a person there who you worked with, who one of your colleagues or whatever, who was arrogant, who thought she was right, and she was rude to other people, and she was angry probably. So anger, arrogance, and then attachment to her views. So then you see the three delusions. You agree with that? Would you agree she was like that?
Yes.
Okay, then that's her. Let's say you are right in your assessment. Let's say that you are right in your assessment. So then that's her problem. This is the type of analysis we have to do, Vanessa. It's very difficult. I know you know the analysis. So that they're her problems. And maybe you are correct in your analysis. Maybe you're very wise and you did see her delusions and you saw what she was doing to others. Now, that's her problem. But now what's your problem?
My problem is...
What are the name of the delusions that you've got? Because you don't suffer if you've got virtues. Do you understand that theoretically? Yeah. If you only had love and compassion and no delusions, you wouldn't have suffered. You would have just felt sorry for this poor girl, but she would not have hurt you. So if you got hurt by her, you have to know what are the reasons inside your mind. So what are the reasons inside your mind? What are the delusions in your mind were the reason for your suffering? What were they? What are they? Do you think? You're in the universe, Vanessa. No one's got new delusions. No one's got delusions that no one else has got. We're all the same. So what are the name of the delusions in your mind that would cause you to be hurt by her actions?
Anger.
And why is anger there? What's underneath anger?
Because
what's underneath anger?
Because I wasn't getting.
What's the delusion under anger?
Maybe pride. I don't know.
No, attachment.
Attachment, okay.
Attachment is this junkie in us every second, Vanessa. Attachment is this junkie in us every second that only wants the nice things. So then your attachment, and of course your attachment to yourself and your attachment to your own worth, that's how we all are. It's very natural. Your attachment to be seen as a nice girl, your attachment to be praised, your attachment to be liked. That was offended when she didn't like you. That attachment caused you to suffer when she was angry or hurtful or arrogant. That's why we all suffer. So you having compassion for her, that's not wrong, but you didn't suffer because you had compassion. You suffer because you have attachment to be liked, attachment to be approved of, and you get angry when you don't. Join the universe, Vanessa. That's the reason for your suffering. So you have to know what you can handle. If you're in a prison cell, like some of my friends, with a maniac who's brutal, unkind, you have no luxury to change it. But if you can change the situation, if you can stop her being this way, or if you could leave it, then you should do that. Now, if you just chose not to leave the situation and you can't change her, there's no point in trying. Then the only job you can do is continue to see your attachment, to see your own anger, and try to work on it and try to analyze. That's what the fundamental daily practice is. Whether it's your boyfriend, a colleague, anything, it's the same reason. The analysis is pretty straightforward, but it's easy to say it, but hard to hear it.
Okay.
You understand, darling?
Yeah. But if I was thinking, if I am in the same encounter and I just can't do the Tonglen compassionate thing, and I can't just.
No, you see, no, wait a minute. You're leaping ahead because you're leaping ahead of yourself. What Tonglen, tell me what you mean by Tonglen. What do you think Tonglen is? What were you doing in Tonglen?
I guess more just thinking compassionate and.
That's not Tonglen. No. Tonglen's outrageous. And Tonglen would be you visualizing this woman in front of you, seeing her delusions, seeing her suffering. And Tonglen would be you preferring, you wanting to take upon yourself her anger, her suffering, because you would rather have the suffering than her. But the method would be not because you become more suffering, but your brave attitude of wanting to take upon yourself her suffering, and you visualize that she's free of suffering, would be that brave attitude would smash your self-centeredness, would smash your attachment, would smash your anger. That's the method. So, I mean, you can try it, but it would be having to have compassion for her. No, the way we have compassion in the West, the way you were describing it was, well, you're sort of trying to get her off the hook. Oh, the poor girl must have been miserable this morning. That's why she's mean to me today. No, that's not enough. And that we tend to think, well, therefore she can't help it. Therefore I should feel sorry for her. That's not enough, Vanessa. If you see your mind really well, Vanessa, you will see her mind. And that's what I meant before when I talked to Marsha. When I read about Mr. Trump or anybody else, I go, I say, oh my God, I can see that attachment. I've got that attachment. I've got that hubris. I've got that jealousy. I've got that anger. So that's one practice for you, far more healthy for you than trying to do Tonglen. You see this girl, everything in her, Vanessa, is in you. And why her stuff triggers you is because you've still got it. So thank her for showing you your own shitty mind. That's a much better practice for you. Can you hear what I'm saying, darling?
Yeah.
You get a more powerful learning. The other one just keeps making you feel like a victim. Forget having compassion for her. Don't worry about that. You've got to have compassion for yourself first, Vanessa. And that means, oh my God, and I see her hubris, I see her arrogance, I see how she's rude. I've got exactly the same. I mightn't express my rudeness in the same way, but she wants to be loved just like everybody else. I see that attachment. I want her to approve of me. That's your attachment to reputation. That's why you're suffering. And that's why when you harm others, that's why you harm others. And that's why she's harming others. So bring it back to yourself first and go, thank you for showing me my own crazy mind, because this is why I suffer. That's why she's suffering. She's suffering just like you, but she's expressing it in a more arrogant way. So you've got to realize your own delusions. And that's the wisdom wing. You look at her and you check, thank you for showing me how not to be. Then the compassion one is much more profound, but you can't do that properly until you've got compassion for yourself, Vanessa. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
I mean, it's a really tricky one. But it just means we've got to go back to our own mind, not with guilt or shame or I'm a bad person. We've got to recognize she is merely the catalyst for your suffering, Vanessa. She's not the main cause at all. And when you fix your mind, when you've lessened your anger and your attachment, you will look her again and you'll just feel sorry for her. You'll just realize, my God, look at that suffering person. And she will not affect you. That's the truth about practice. This is the real truth, Vanessa. When we work on our own mind, other people will not hurt us. If they hurt us, it's because they're triggering the delusions in us. So that's, they're showing us what we need to work on. That's the wisdom wing. So focus on that more. And then you'll become more courageous. And then you won't be just like Catherine tends to be quiet, she said, so she gets run over by people. And then when you're more courageous and know your own mind, maybe someday you might say something back to her, but because you'll stand up for yourself, but it won't come out of anger. It'll be out of common sense and it will be helpful to her. But right now you're too scared to do that because you're a good girl and you're a nice girl and you don't run around getting angry, and your attachment is to being a good girl. And that's what keeps you like a little mouse sometimes. So that's because of your own fear of being disliked. It's attachment to reputation, Vanessa. Join the universe, baby. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So keep seeing your own mind, but out of kindness, not out of guilt. And then you become more courageous, and then you'll be able to effortlessly say something when it's necessary. Instead of being, because that's the pain that people like you have. You live in regret of all the things you should say and shouldn't say. And I shouldn't be compassionate to her. Then I can stand up for myself. That's how you're thinking. It's only because you're afraid to speak up, Vanessa, because you don't want people to dislike you. We're all like this to one degree or another. We're all desperate to be liked. That's attachment to reputation. That's what holds you back. Do you understand? or not?
I do. I just I just worry it's going to happen again, and like I'm going to have to.
Stop, Vanessa. What will happen again?
Someone's just going to be mean to me, and
It's going to happen. Don't be
It's-
afraid. But Vanessa, why do you think the world's going to change? Why are you so scared of it? You've got to look at why you're so scared. Of course it's going to happen again. You think people are going to love you from now on just because you become a better person? Don't be ridiculous. That is absolute nonsense. Don't be so scared, baby. People are always going to not like you. People always do things that are going to harm you. Don't be scared of it. So when you change your own Dharma, it's like you're telling me, I'm scared I might meet a very big tennis player like Federer who'll beat me again. Of course you're going to find people who are better at tennis. What's the learning for you? Learn bloody better tennis, baby. Then you'll be able to deal with the Federers. Are you seeing my point, Vanessa? Be brave, work on your mind, become courageous, work on your own attachment, your own fears. But don't be afraid of meeting people who are going to harm you. You're always going to meet someone who won't like you. So the practice isn't to make all go away. The practice is to become a braver, wiser person so they won't hurt you eventually. That's what practice is, Vanessa. Things will change. You will get old. You will die. People will be mean to you. Bad things will happen. You might get cancer. You might lose your job. These will happen. Don't be afraid of them. Confront them. Attachment is terrified of bad things happening. That's why you're living in so much fear. The world is like this. So what do? You don't keep being afraid they won't come near you. You make yourself more able to handle it by working on your own mind, which is already what you're doing. Can you hear me or not?
yes, I hear you.
Good girl. Well done.
Thank you.
Good, Vanessa. Thank you, darling. What else, people? Any questions there, Mary?
Questions, anyone? I do not see any in the chat box.
Anybody want to talk to me?
Yeah, I want to talk. Do you hear me?
You talk to me, yeah. Are you in the hospital today or at home today?
No, not in hospital. I was in hospital yesterday because I had a teeth, the last teeth, because I have 26, and it causes too much pain. But
Okay,
finally, I lost my time because, well,
Anyway.
I have to come back. Anyway, okay. So, but now I'm calm down, more or less.
Tell me your question.
Okay, so I have 3 questions. I gonna try to be quickly. Okay, first question is I read the tarot. I mean the tarot cards, you know.
Yes.
And I feel guilty after doing that because I do it so much, and then I say to myself, I don't know if it's because I'm trying to follow Dharma, so I don't know if I want your opinion if it's good or bad, if I should leave it.
Tell me the
Okay.
question. Try and make it a question. What's your question?
The question is if it's bad or against Dharma to read the tarot, because sometimes I see things that are...
I know what the tarot cards are, but why don't you tell me what they are and why you read them?
Okay.
Keep it very clear and simple, Esther.
What?
Keep it clear and simple. Why
Yes.
do you read the tarot cards? What's your purpose?
To know what is going to happen.
Okay, stop. Great. Nothing wrong with that. When you become more advanced spiritually, you will have clairvoyance. You will have that ability, and we need it to help sentient beings, there's no question. But I understand your point. We've become obsessed with it, consulting the astrologer, consulting this, consulting all these. Of course, we can become, you're completely attached to it. So it won't help you because every day you're slightly different. Every day because everything's very interdependent. So one day your mind will be peaceful, so you'll pick up a certain card, and that will tell you one thing. And then tomorrow your mind is unpeaceful. That means you pick up another card, and it will appear different. So you'll never get certainty. Things are very interdependent. So relax your mind, abide by the laws of karma, don't kill, don't lie, don't steal, try to work on your mind to be a good person. And then when you learn this more and more, it is logical. You will be able to know what will happen in the future because you are causing your future.
Yes.
You're seeing your future like something in the future that has nothing to do with you now. That's ridiculous. That's like doing tarot cards every day when you're working on your garden. Will my flowers grow? Will my weeds grow? You don't need to look into the future. You put your proper plants in the ground now and you know what will grow in the future. So you'll be more intelligent about it.
Yes.
One step at a time. Don't be, Miss Taya, don't be guilty. That's stupid. Just control it and do it when it's appropriate. Don't do it too much because you just keep getting new answers and you go crazy. So just control it. It's called attachment, darling. It's like eating too much food, listening to too much music, having too much sex. You're attached to it. So relax it and do it when it's appropriate, and don't do it all the time. And then just practice virtue every day. That's intelligent.
Okay.
What's your second question?
Okay, thank you. The second question is about, maybe it's stupid, but I need to ask that anyway. That I have a phone that it doesn't work, and I have the belief that this phone is kind of connected to, I don't know, other dimension or weird things, because I had a strange dream about, and I feel like and
What is your question? What is your question?
So I kept this phone since,
What is your question? Just ask the question, darling.
For doing the question, I need to say that. So
no, I just want the question. No, Estella, it's really good for your
Okay.
mind. Just ask me a question, darling. Ask me a question.
I don't know what to do with that phone, because there
Throw
are
it away and
photos,
get a new one. God Almighty.
but there are photos of me inside. Is this attachment? It's better to say
Estella,
goodbye.
what's your question? So then delete everything off the phone and buy a new one. Be more practical. You've got to be more on the earth, Estella. You've got to be, yes, there are lots of beings in the universe, and yes, lots of beings can harm us and help us. It is true. But if you don't know the facts, there's no benefit in speculating. So why don't you take everything off, throw it away, and buy a new phone? Or will that not solve the problem for you?
You say, sorry, you say taking the photos that are inside and then take the phone away.
Well, you're saying you think it's connected to some other dimension and you're nervous about it. You're nervous about it, right?
Yeah.
Solve the problem, throw it away, smash it, do what you like with it. Well, I mean,
Okay.
what's the problem? What do you think will happen? What are you worried about happening?
Okay, I'm worried about that there are a lot of pictures of me inside, and I say, maybe when I will be old, I will say, oh no, I have a lot of memories inside, but I threw it away. So now I can't get the photos back because I thought that it was connected to another dimension.
I think I'm suggesting you're making it too complicated. But be practical, darling. There are beings in the universe. They can harm us and things can happen, but it doesn't matter. A photo is just a physical thing. Don't give it more power than it has. Memories are in your mind, not in the photos.
Okay.
Darling, just be practical. Be practical.
Yeah.
Sweet. Good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, darling. Thank you so much. Thank you, Estella. Good. Thank you, sweetheart. What else, people? Other questions? No? No questions? Is there any topic you want me to talk on, people?
Hello, Robina. This is Dawn.
Hello, Dawn. Hello, sweetheart.
Hi. We watched the documentary about the monks.
Oh yeah, the Buxar Lama.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Yes. And yesterday you mentioned the story about being a bodyguard and waiting. So I was curious about the role of gender in Buddhism.
I understand that. So ask me
I'm asked.
Make it a bit more clear, more precise question.
Okay. Are nuns and monks considered equal in their ability?
I understand. So, okay, as we know, Buddhism started in India. And if you look back at the history of India, I mean, it wasn't cool to be female. I don't think so, you know. I mean, if a woman had no status, I mean, even now in every culture, it's been the same. We can see all this. So it's a very patriarchal society. And so India was completely where Buddhism was. And then it went to Tibet, and Tibet, I mean, in many ways, in lay life in Tibet, men and women seem pretty equal. You know, it's very interesting. But when it comes to the monastics, because it came from India, there's a big difference, because one of the reasons is in Tibet, certainly, the full ordination, there's different levels of ordination of being a monastic. And in Tibet, the full ordination for women never got there. So 99% of the Sangha were male, they were monks, fully ordained, and nuns were technically we're all just novices. We were only a novice nun. So it wasn't the same, didn't have the same status. And most people got born as males and most people became monks. That's just how it was in Tibet, because it's the karma of it. So now Buddhism's in the West. And so I know that for myself, my own experience, Dawn, when I had about 10 years of real radical political activity before I became a Buddhist. I mean, I stopped being a Catholic when I was 19. And those next 10 years, I went from being a really radical hippie. I went to Europe. I was involved in the radical, then I was kind of involved in the radical left and all the kind of the communist type radical left movement really intensively. I mean, I was, arrested on Fleet Street during one of the Irish demonstrations in London. Then I became involved in black politics, so, in a group in London, supporting a group that supported George Jackson and the Soledad Brothers and Angela Davis back in the early 70s. And then I became a feminist, then I became a radical feminist, then I became a radical lesbian feminist, then I became a radical lesbian separatist feminist. I had 10 intensive years of serious, full immersion in political activity in my own mind, trying to find the way to see the world, trying to understand the world. So the feminist one obviously was the deepest one, the most intense one, because I'm not poor, I'm not black, but I am female. So it was a really powerful experience for me for a couple of years, full immersion in this female politics, serious radical politics, okay? So I sort of got to the point, and I joke about it. So I always joke, and I say when I was a Catholic, the whole world, I was a fanatic Catholic too. I was totally devoted to God, went to mass 7 mornings a week, was in love with God, wanted to be a nun when I was 12. And then, then that changed. So basically when I was a Catholic, the whole world was, the problem with the non-Catholics. And then I was a hippie, all the straight people were the problem. And then I was a radical lefty and all the rich people were the problem. And then I was into black politics, all the white people were the problem. Then I became a feminist, all the male people were the problem. And I was serious at every level because I'm extreme. So by that point, I really seriously had exhausted all options. I had no one left to blame for the universe. So that's when I then wanted something spiritual again. So I tried TM, I tried to go back to mass, and then I bumped into these Tibetan lamas, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, in 1976 when I was like 31, 32, 31. And then it blew my mind, completely blew my mind. I've been 10 years of intensive politics, and I went to this course in Queensland in Australia. And it was sort of hippie time, but I'd done that 10 years before, and I'd done all this intensive political activity. And I felt like I had this massive culture shock among these 200 people where all the women were called ladies and all the men did all the work and the men were the serious ones. And the women and the monks sit in front of the nuns, and I suddenly hear all these Tibetan Buddhists talking and everything is he. It was, I can't describe the culture shock to me. It was absolutely stupendous. It was amazing, shocking for me. So I then really, another part of me knew this was my path. It was absolutely clear from the day I walked in to Chen Raising Institute. On that day, I knew this was where I belonged. I'd spent my 31, 32 years looking for this, and everything led me to this. That was how clear it was for me. So I knew I had to do some processing, and it was intensely difficult. I did a 1-month Lamrim course with Lama Zopa, then I did a 1-month retreat with Lama Yeshe, tantric retreat. It was really hard work to have to process. So I had to learn to work with all this and to understand where it was all coming from and was it set in stone. But then slowly, I mean, here I am now, what's that, 45 years later, here I am, 46 years, whatever it is, I forget, 44 years later, totally content with being the Buddhist. And this is the view I have of the universe. And the few things that began to become clear to me then was that, first of all, when I understood karma, that was the big one that had been missing in my life. When I heard that word karma, that was the one that was so powerful, that we are our own creators, that our mind goes back and back since the beginning of this time, that every single experience we ever have, we created. All the suffering we have, I created it. All the happiness I have, I created it. This began to become stupendously powerful for my mind. So yes, there is suffering on this planet. There is injustice, there is suffering, there is a shocking, gender has been over the centuries an incredible way to suffer, race, gender, you name it, it's going to be all these dualities, there's no question it is true. But then I began to realize, well, gosh, guess what? If I'm born female and people see me in terms of my breasts and my vagina, I've been raped, I've had all these different things happen, which is very common for women. I've been abused by my father. All these things happen because I'm a girl. It's like the particular suffering of girls. Who caused this? I was probably the bloody male rapist in the past life. So it was like, for me, I began to understand this and realize I have to stop being a victim. This is true. So what am I going to do? I'm going to understand that I take responsibility, and then and by being who I am, I'll try and change things. And that's what you learn to do. We accept reality. We accept experience. We accept responsibility for whatever we do. Now, I mean, look at the racism with race. Look at the suffering with race. Look at the suffering in the universe with gender. I mean, women in India were thrown, the live wife was thrown on the funeral pyre of the dead husband because she was a chattel. She was part of the furniture. We all know that. It's throughout the universe. But if you don't have the view of karma, no wonder we all go crazy. But if we create the cause, so if you're seen as a crummy person, if you're seen, if we take karma and the 4 ways our karma ripens, and one of them is called experiences similar to the cause, which is how we're seen and treated by others. Now, this is, look at Vanessa's story. This is the major way we suffer in the world, how we're seen and treated by others, because we have attachment. We all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all want that. But if someone sees you as low, if someone sees you in terms of your vagina, if someone just sees you as, as ugly or fearful because you've got black skin, who do you think caused it, Dawn? We did. So I'm not trying to sound brutal. I also caused all my own happiness. So when you take that responsibility, and then by being different now, we change the dynamic. That's how we change things. I mean, environmental suffering, we blame the external environment. We blame all the plastic bags and the too much gas or something, but it's our own past killing and stealing that have caused environmental stuff. So by living a moral life, by changing it, by changing my own view of myself, by owning responsibility for everything that happens to me because I caused it. I was the man who raped in the past life. I've got egg on my face now. And if I don't be careful, I'm going to be the man in the next life. So, it just keeps going around in ridiculous, insane circles. So by changing who I am now, taking responsibility, then that's how we change the world. So I don't know if that helps you as an answer. It doesn't answer your point directly as far as Buddhism is concerned. What I learned even back then, hearing the teachings, when I began to understand the mind is not physical. So everything that the shape that we take in a life, whether it's fat, thin, male, female, black, white, Chinese, rich, poor, beautiful, ugly, stupid, intelligent, they are the karmic shapes that we create ourselves and that we take on in the next life. A fish is a shape that the person, due to delusions, has created from certain actions in the past life. No one makes us. It's not set in stone. So we create who we are. So a male and a female, but mine is not male, it's not female, it's not up, it's not down, it's not dog, it's not anything. It has this potential to be a Buddha, to be enlightened. So that for me is the main point. My mind is not male or female. So every male, every female, every person, every black, every white, every dog has the same potential. It's a question of having the conditions in which you can grow that potential. And due to our negative or positive karma, we will meet those conditions. So with the karmic view, and that takes time, and we mightn't like the karmic view, but it explains why things happen, and then it explains what I can do with that, how to make sure I get what I want in the future and be a person who is respected. So if I want to be respected in the future, Dawn, I need to be humble and respect other people. If I don't want to be abused and raped in the future, I shouldn't abuse and rape people now. If I don't want to be lied to in the future, I better stop lying now. If I want, in other words, it's in my hands.
So when I talk to my kids, I tell them that we're made out of male and female hormones, like.
Well, that's just physical. I'm not interested. I'm not discussing the physical here. I know the worldly view, and that's okay. I'm telling you the Buddhist one. You've got a mind. We have a mind, Dawn, and mind is made up of love, compassion, anger, jealousy, you name it. So that mind is not male or female. There's no way it is. Right. But the shape we take is dependent on the karma we created. So, but yes, so you therefore can say a male and a female have exactly the same nature, exactly the same potential. But you can see that it's like saying, well, is one person with one leg equal to a person with 2 legs? On one sense, no, you're limited because you only got one bloody leg. So there can be certain physical conditions that can make it worse for us.
But the one with the one without the leg could have the capacity to be learn from, have that experience and raise up the person with the one leg that would seem.
Of course, darling, but that's not what of course, all that's true. So what I'm getting at is, if we think about what we're talking about here, what we're hearing when we hear about, you hear the traditional teachings, at the time of India, it was said that it wasn't so cool to be female. They don't mean because there's something kind of constricted about your mind. It's because at that time, the condition was that a girl was worth nothing. And if you wanted to walk off as a girl and go to a cave and meditate, you would have got killed and raped in 1 minute flat. Because people, it's all conditional, it's all relative. But when we hear that then therefore it's less to be female, it's not true in the way we're meaning it. Your mind is the same. You have the same potential. But if if you're born, honey, if I'm born in a bloody country where I've got to cover my body from head to toe and have my vagina sewn up, I don't think I want that rebirth. So that doesn't mean females aren't good people. It just means you created such lousy karma from being a damned arrogant male in the past, no doubt, that you get born and there's this person who is worthless and useless. But in your nature, you're not worthless and useless. But you wouldn't want to choose to be born in a country where you're seen as nothing. So you don't create that cause. So it's all created by ourselves. That's the point. So it's not, but it's our fundamental nature is not different. Our fundamental nature is the same. That's the real point. You might have to work harder with only one leg, but you still can achieve the same goal. You might have to work harder. You'd have to work 10 times. We all know it's common sense. When black people in America say they've got to work 10 times harder to be appreciated, we know that women have to be 10 times harder. So that shows the limitation of being a bloody female. But it's not because female is wrong. Who caused that? Bloody arrogant male from the past. And now you're born where you're constricted and no one appreciates you. All they do is see your tits. Who caused that? We did, by being arrogant in the past. So we learn from that and we work extra hard. So we ideally don't want any obstacles. We all want to be born with the same, we don't want to have a handicap like the horses, We all want to have the same equality, but we don't have, because we're not equal, because we're all stupid and create negative causes, and then we create our own selves. So it's, so we want to be born in the next life with limitless ability, limitless money. So what about limitless money? So you can do whatever you want. Be generous. If you want everybody to adore you, be humble and loving. If you want no one to be arrogant with you, be humble. If you want everyone to believe your words, don't lie. So you create the causes now. You learn from your conditions now. You know that you caused them. But fundamentally, the point above all of the conditions, everything, the shapes and sizes and races and genders and poor and rich, they're just the consequences of past actions. They're not set in stone. And so we all want the best conditions. So if you want the best conditions, start creating them right now. But male and female, finally, black or white, Asian or Eurasian, or whatever you want to call it, white or whatever, they're just external conditions that fundamentally don't affect our true nature. Our true nature is what it is, which is our mind, and that is Buddhahood. Can you get my point?
Thank you, Robina. It's karmic.
Good. That was clear, helpful.
Yeah.
We've got to see, we're so addicted in the West to believing in the external one. You're black in your bones, you're white in your bones. Now all the racists talk about how white people have a better something, male people have a better something. That's just that's just a kind of garbage talk. It's about a certain condition, a certain kind of environment. It's true. Who would want to be born a black person in 1930s Southern in the South? We get hanged for looking at somebody. Even now, look what goes on. So it doesn't mean that black people are bad. It's just due to karma, you've got a condition in which you're suffering. Okay, karma sounds like it's blaming us. No, it just gives us the empowerment to know we can change it. They're just external shapes and sizes that have validity. I mean, these days it does really seem it's not so cool to be a tall person with a big dick anymore and white skin. Excuse me, being blunt. Suddenly it doesn't seem such the best thing to be anymore. Because everything, our history, we can see it is from the perspective of a European male. It's just the karma. We all created all this. We're on this big ridiculous nonsense together. Does it make sense what I'm saying, people?
It does. It does. It's karma.
The external reality is real insofar. If you are a female and you walk into a club of men who think you've just got a tits and a vagina, you're going to be limited, aren't you? You can want them to appreciate you, but you can't force them because their minds are so stupid. So it is a limitation for you. But you don't blame yourself. You don't blame anybody. It's just the karmic connection that we've all created. Do you understand? So we've got to learn from that, and we've got to work with what we've got because we created it, so we can achieve our own potential. And that's the courage we have to all have. And then by being different now, we change the future. Do you understand?
Yes. It's very hopeful, actually.
Good, I'm glad. I'm very happy. That's what I've learned anyway. Being a short, fat female. And the thing is, whatever, blah, blah.
You're beautiful.
Finally, our mind is the same. There's no difference in your mind, baby. And when we know that, nothing can stop us. Nothing can stop us. And that's the teaching for your children. Shapes and colors are just temporary things, and they have a function, and they do have limitations. So we can see our projections on each other, But the main thing is to know your own true nature, your mind, your love, your compassion, your intelligence. No question. That's who you really are. That our mind is what we really are. And it's up to us to have that confidence to develop ourselves. That's the main thing.
Thank you.
All right, darling. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Very interesting.
Venerable,
Yes,
it's Doris.
Good morning, Doris. How can I help you, Doris?
I feel like we're sitting with Tara.
What?
I feel like we're sitting with Tara.
Terror. No, it's true, isn't it?
I'm referring to you.
Oh, what do you mean? Sorry.
Well,
Tara.
you just seem to be the action that Tara embodies.
Terror.
Tara.
Terror. Terror. You mean I'm scaring you?
Tara.
Oh, Tara. Sorry. I think, God, how awful. I'm Terror. Tara. We say
Oh,
Tara.
sorry, my accent probably.
I know, darling. It's okay. Now I understand. Okay, whatever. You got pure view. There you go.
I have a question about Lama Chopa.
Yes, sweetheart.
It's a big practice, but I like it.
Yes, good.
I don't have the initiation.
You don't need it.
Quite clear what I'm supposed to leave out.
Oh, I see. No, there are two places in there where there's a certain meditation, and I mentioned it twice. So, okay, the main thing to leave out, okay, when you received a high, okay. All right. To do that practice, you don't need to have received an initiation into a tantric practice. So, because you can do it. But there are 2 points there. One after the preliminary practices where you dissolve yourself into emptiness, as they call it. That's where, if you have taken initiation, there's a particular meditation there where you would dissolve the Buddha into you, and then you would do a meditation on emptiness, and then you would manifest as the deity. You'd see yourself as the deity that you have received the initiation into. And that happens 2 times. So that's the only thing you leave out. So in those points, you would just simply visualize Buddha at your heart. That's all.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. That's clear.
Good, fantastic. What else, people? Anyone else? Questions? Mary wants you to ask questions. What do you want me to talk about? We've got 30 minutes. Emptiness. There's only so many topics. There's, impermanence we've talked about. Then there's karma, we've mentioned about a bit. There's refuge we haven't talked about. Purification.
Venerable Robina, can you talk a little bit about why we bow to the Buddha and offer things to the Buddha?
Oh, okay, Nancy, that's a good
point. Instead of thinking of him as a god, we don't do that, but why we do.
Okay, why do you prostrate? Why do you bow? Why do you make offerings? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, what they are is an expression from our side of respect for somebody. So we understand the word respect. Okay, don't we? So if you go, you say you go to your grandmother and you love your grandmother, you respect your grandmother, you'd show some kind of respect, wouldn't you? Would you do that or not? How would you show respect to you? I mean, we might not prostrate. That's very Asian. It's an Asian tradition. But we might shake, or we even forget that. You greet a person, you might sort of shake hands with them. Would you agree with that? Or you might give a hug. That's a sign of affection, but a sign of respect. The shaking hands is a sort of a greeting, isn't it? Would you agree with that? It's a respect. Well, a prostration is a very elaborate handshake. That's all it is. And it is culture, but you think about, this is back to now Dawn's point, everything we do with our body and everything we do with our speech is within a certain cultural framework, isn't it? I mean, if you meet a Tibetan who's never met Westerners before and has lived up in the mountains, and when you meet them, hello Tenzin, and you poke your hand out, they will look at your hand, they think that's a nice hand. They have no idea what you're doing because they've never heard of a handshake. So you'll grab their hand and then their hand will all be kind of wimpy and soft because they don't know they're supposed to grip your hand very strongly and shake it. So you think, what a funny looking fella. Well, that's called a ritual, isn't it? That's a ritual. It's a ritual. Everything we do is a ritual. The way we sit at the dining room table, the way we use our knife and fork, the way we sit on a toilet and wipe our bottom, the way we walk, everything we do with our body is a ritual. If you didn't know anything about humans, all you'd see is these weird people doing weird things with their bodies all day, and because you don't know the meaning of what they're doing. So for us, a ritual tends to be a thing we call, that's done in religion, that has no meaning because we've lost the meaning. So we just do it out of superstition. Well, everything has meaning if you put the meaning into it. So a prostration happens to be coming from Asia. It's an Asian thing. It's an Australian. Aboriginals don't do a prostration. As a Catholic, I did a genuflection. You know, as a fancy word for putting your knee, you kneel down and you bow when you go to church, and you'd always genuflect. You'd never not go to genuflect. Well, you'd never not prostrate when you go into the gompa. It's protocol, but it's got a meaning, and the meaning is respect. So why would I respect the Buddha? Why would I respect my math teacher? Why would I respect my grandmother? Why would I respect my music teacher? Because I've learned something from them and I'm grateful and I want to become like them. So I mightn't prostrate to Federer at my tennis coaching, but I would definitely have respect for him and I would revere him and I would show that respect in a certain way, wouldn't I? But it mightn't be a prostration because that's Asian, that's Tibetan. You see the Thais prostrate differently. The Japanese do something else. It's just, they're like I was talking to Dawn, they're just the cultural expressions, but all cultural expressions, whether they're negative or positive, come from the mind, you know. So that's the meaning of a prostration and has incredible meaning. So now, then you think, well, the Buddha couldn't care less. I mean, my grandmother, you know, she's happy who she is. If she's really, or Federer, for example, if he's proud and arrogant, he wants me to revere him. That's a big problem. But if he's really a best Federer, he won't mind if I don't revere him. He's content in who he is. Well, a Buddha is completely content in who they are. They've accomplished the goal. They don't need my rubbish. But I need to show respect. Why? Because I will get the benefit from that. So I'm the beneficiary of prostrating. And I'm the beneficiary of making offerings. I mean, making offerings. If we think about karmically the causes of getting a decent human life with a decent condition. So the human body itself, that's the fruit of non-killing. So you'll get one of those. So what's the difference between a person who's living in a desert with not even a grain of rice, but a very beautiful body, and a person who's got a beautiful body, but born with access to money and food and conditions? The difference is their practice of generosity. So everything is caused by what we do. So having access to ordinary things, and that's one of the things we've got the karma, some of us, not all of us, in some countries, where we can get food when we feel like it, get roses when we want it, have couches and tables and things when we want them, because that's the fruit. Every second we get what we want, it's the fruit of generosity. So if like I'm saying to Dawn, we look at our life now, and I have to work extra hard if I've only got one leg. I've got to work extra hard if I'm a bloody female around 10 sexist males to be seen and heard, but I know I've created that cause, so I've got to work extra hard. So if I know I want that kind of respect in the future life, if I want money in the future life, so I have the leisure to be able to practice Dharma all day, then I will be generous now. So generosity is the most incredible practice. It's a fundamentally necessary practice. And it's nothing to do with whether Buddha wants something. Buddha needs nothing. You know, my rich grandmother needs nothing, but just because she doesn't need anything does not mean I don't give her a beautiful gift, because the giver is the beneficiary. So giving is the most powerful practice, and giving to the Buddhas and giving to the Guru and giving even in your mind, imagining a mandala, because every thought counts. So it's an incredibly easy practice to do. And the beneficiary is me. When you give, your heart opens. And then I experience the result of having things. And I don't need having things just for attachment, because I want to have time next life, not to have to work all day, so I can practice nonstop. So we're the beneficiary of these practices, and especially when they're in relation to the Buddha, you know, in holy beings. So the relationship we have with the Buddha is not as a creator, as you mentioned, nothing to do with a creator. But because we say prayers, so people say, well, who do you pray to if you don't believe in a God? But why do we assume that a prayer, I mean, again, let's look at these words. A prayer is many of the prayers in Buddhism are aspirations. May we become enlightened. May I benefit all sentient beings. They're strong, powerful, positive thinking, sowing in my mind the wish so I can become a Buddha, so I can benefit others. May I become enlightened. May I be free of suffering. They're not saying, some of them are requesting the support of the Buddhas, because that's their job, you know. You go to a doctor, not because they heal you with magic, because you rely upon their advice. So we rely upon the Buddha in the same way, as a mentor, as an advisor, not as a creator. So prayers are and aspirations. When you do your Tara practice, for example, you visualize Tara, you know, you're visualizing that's your guru, and you're making aspirations and prayers. That links you to Tara, that opens your mind, and it causes you to become Tara. So that's the benefit of all of these practices. Does that make sense, Nancy?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. What else, people? Huh? That's enough, isn't it, Mary? You want me to
That's
talk?
something that's maybe not terribly timely because we can't travel right now. But when I first met you, I had been studying Buddhism for a long time, but I met you on a pilgrimage. And could you speak a little bit about the benefits of pilgrimage for people who may not have?
Okay, I will. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I know. That's very good, Mary Ellen. Thank you. So, okay. So here I am. I'm calling myself a Buddhist. And I think, well, who's Buddha? And I know he was this Indian gentleman and he lived in places in India. And there's various places in India where he lived and he retreated and he died and he got bored and he got enlightened, these different places, right? So pilgrimage then, to the benefit of me deciding, a person, going to the places where the Buddha was, it's not just sentimental. I think it's just simply, if I want, okay, I'm trying to be a Buddhist. Okay, forget that. I'm a musician. I want to become like Bach. And I read about Bach and I want to go to where Bach lived. And I go to where Bach was and I see his piano, I see his, harpsichord, and I see the music he wrote and the place where he lived with his wife and his 23 children or whatever it was. So that it inspires me. It makes me feel closer to Bach because I want to become like Bach. So that's pilgrimage. So I go to the place of the whole, interestingly, I didn't expect this. It was in Santa Fe, actually, 21 years ago. And I was here, and my friend Peggy Bennington from San Francisco, who was the director of our center there then, and she was a lawyer, and she was a lawyer for Harley Davidson because she's a Harley Davidson fanatic, and she was on her Harley Davidson. So I hopped on the back and we went for a ride in my helmet and my, Harley Davidson jacket. And I like motorbikes anyway, because I used to have a motorbike. Actually, I used to have a motorbike before I was a Buddhist. Then I gave it up because I went to India, kind of a motorbike in India. So then, interestingly, in San Francisco, when I lived there 15 years ago, I decided I'd buy a motorbike again. I'm old now, I was old then too. So I just thought I'd buy a motor scooter. So I went to Vespa. They would not sell me one because I'm less than 5'2". They refused to sell me a Vespa. So I had to go buy another funny little Italian red bike that cost me $5,000. $4,000 was gorgeous. So I hadn't ridden a bike for 30 years. So I hopped on this little motor scooter and ran all over San Francisco. I loved it. It only went about 50 miles an hour. I couldn't go on the freeway. I fell off a few times, and then cars would always toot me because I was so dangerous driving in between the cars, but I loved it. It was so great. Anyway, that was just for a couple of years. I had my red motor scooter. So anyway, I was on Peggy's, Harley Davidson. And then she said that she'd been on, or she read about a pilgrimage run by Shambhala magazine going to India and Nepal. She said, why don't you run a pilgrimage and raise money for the prison project? That's when it started. So we did one in 2001. And I'd never done one before. I had no idea. I thought, this is a good idea. So we did one. And it was amazing. I could not believe it. I was blown out, Mary Ellen. Now, as you know, Mary Ellen came. Well, that was a trek, wasn't it? Didn't you come on the trek first?
I've been on 2 pilgrimages with you, but it wasn't that one. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, whatever. So the thing was, what blew my mind and I didn't expect was that when we went to these holy places, and actually we did this, we're hoping to do our next, the next one we're booking in now is for February 22. We were trying to do one in 21. We're not going to do one now. The trek's the same. We do a trek up to Laudo, Lama Zopa's amazing place up above Namche Bazaar, 4,500 meters up in the mountains. That's so special. We've done 3 of those already. Mary Ellen's done one of those with me, her and her husband, and she's been up there doing a special project, running all the putting solar and water and everything. She did a great job, Mary Ellen. So anyway, the pilgrimage was to the places of the Buddha, and all the Buddhists praise it. And I had a phone conversation with Lama Zopa before we did it, and he told me the different practices to do at each place. So there's usually classically 8 places that they talk about. But I decided we'd start in Kathmandu because that's where Courtin Monastery is, Lama Zopa Lama Yeshe's monastery. And I wanted people to connect with that. So we began in Kathmandu. So then there are holy places in Kathmandu. Tibetans love Kathmandu. They think it's such a holy place. As far as we're concerned, this is stinky, smelly, polluted place. But for them, it's such a holy place. So special, Kathmandu, or the whole Kathmandu Valley. And there's the Swayambhu Stupa and the Bodha Stupa, these very special stupas. And that Lama Zopa waxes lyrical about them. So we always started there. And then I could see that people love these places. They love them, In fact, this is a very interesting point. I remember Venerable Renee, whom you all know, some of you know and love. A most holy being, quite a holy being. He's meditated for 30, 40 years, And I interviewed him about his meditation retreat at Ursaling, our place in Spain, named by His Holiness. in 1982, which is when I was there as a security guard, interestingly. He named it the Place of Clear Light, Ling. This wonderful place up in the mountains in the Sierra Nevada. And how special it was and how it reminded him of Tibet, he said. And it's a retreat center still. So anyway, Venerable Renee went up there for 2.5 years. In 95, I interviewed him in Mandalay about this 2.5 year retreat. It's one of his first big concentration meditation retreats, right? Trying to get single point of concentration. And the concentration technique is described in terms of 9 stages of cultivation. And he said he only got to about the 5th of the 9 stages in that 2.5 years. And he knew he couldn't get further. So anyway, it was very amazing discussing his retreat with him and concentration and everything and meditation. So then I interviewed him about this retreat at Courtin Monastery. So anybody who's been there, so up in the Kathmandu Valley, it's about 40 minutes out of Kathmandu if you're walking, more than that. But it's not very far away, only 5 miles out, but it's up on a hill. It's beautiful. And when I first went there, it was just this isolated, beautiful place. There's no, the whole valley was just green, right? Now it's completely like suburbs. It's okay. But the point is, it's a really busy place. And even in 95, it was a really busy place up in Courtin with the villagers down there and the dogs barking and the Hindus with their prayers to Shiva at 4 in the morning and everything. It's noisy. But he said, and this is my point now about Kathmandu Valley, he said that his mind got more subtle, more easily at Courtin, which is noisy, than in Spain at this beautiful retreat center. So this is the key point about retreat. And this is one thing, and this is my point now about the benefit of pilgrimages. They say the key factor that is special about a place for meditation is that it's been blessed by the presence of previous meditators. This is very powerful. And this is an interesting point for Estella. There are many beings in the universe, Estella. Some are negative and some are positive. So when you've got a place that's blessed by the presence of previous holy beings, it's a very special place to be because, it attracts so much positive energy. And indeed, it can be negative energy as well, darling, which is why you've got to protect yourself. It's important. So that was very powerful. So that's the benefit of pilgrimage. If since 2,500 years, the Buddha was there, all his disciples, and over the centuries, for 2,500 years, holy beings, yogis, meditators have been going to these places. So they're imbued with holy energy. And for me, I'm as thick as a post. I have no realizations. I have no special experiences. I have no meditation experiences, but all I can tell you, even I felt special about these places. I remember when I was talking about emptiness at the place in Saranath, Deer Park, where Buddha taught the 4 Noble Truths. Even then, I felt something special. Everybody in every one of these pilgrimages, and I've led 16 or 17 of them since 2001, every time people have special meditations, special experiences, special dreams. People are in tears because it's the powerful places that have been blessed by the presence of all those centuries of holy beings. That's something very tasty. And even thick people like me can feel it, so it's so, so special, I tell you. And I love going. I'm not bored. I've done 17. I'm not bored yet. I can't wait to lead the next one. So we start in Kathmandu. We always stay at the Hyatt. It's my favorite hotel in the whole world. I think you stay in the best places. And in India, we stay in some of the worst, so it's okay. But the Hyatt is just so gorgeous. We stay 2 nights there. People are so happy. Then we go to Courtin, and everybody loves Courtin Monastery. We stay a couple of days there. And then we go to the holy places next day to both Swayambhu and Bodha, these amazing special stupas. And then we fly to next day we fly to Lumbini, which is where Buddha got born. And then it's right on the border of India, and that's in Nepal. So then we meet our buses, and these amazing Indian buses. I adore these bus drivers. I always joke and say they've all got the same wife who does the same ironing of their little shirts because they're always looking impeccable with their nice iron shirts. And they live in the bus, with their attendant. They're incredible. I'm not being sexist here, I'm just joking. These are wonderful bus drivers. We then spend 10 days in India in these big buses. We all have our own seat in the bus. And we go from these places, from place to place. Sometimes it's a 10-hour drive, but people love it, We stop off and have samosas and chai and eat Indian sweets and buy oranges and bananas. And then we go to the next place we go after Lumbini. We cross over the border, get our Indian visas and everything, or, get our visas checked. And then we go to, the next place we go to is Swayambhu. No, sorry, it's what's it called? Shravasti, which is a 10-hour drive, and it's very rare that people go there because it's out of the usual trek of tourists. But the only people who go there are Buddhists for pilgrimage, and it's where Buddha did retreats in the rainy seasons. Every rainy season for like 25 years, all his students and his disciples and all do this retreat in this place. And Lama Zopa said it's such a special place. It's so easy to meditate there because of these meditators all these years. So then we go to Kushinagar, where Lord Buddha passed away. We spend 2 nights in each place. And so Kushinagar, there are 2 different places there. And there's one that's like this mound. I love this one. It's not a very done up. It's not a fancy stupa. It's just this mound. And that's where Buddha is, where he passed away. And we do practices at each place. And people love doing this. Even if they're not Buddhists, we make multiple offerings. We do special prayers and pujas, a couple of hours at each place. And then people have fun. They go to shops and do this and that. Then we go to, where do we go next? Rajgriha, where Buddha taught the Heart Sutra. We stay 2 nights there. And we go to Nalanda Monastery, another place. Buddha mightn't have gone there, but there's an amazing monastic university that was thriving 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th century. And then unfortunately, when the Muslims came along, because that's the world, that's what just karmic appearances again, groups of people come along and, you know, conquer other groups of people. It's just how it is. Life after life, changing labels, changing names, changing shapes. 1 minute you're harm, next minute you're the harmer, you know, it's ridiculous. So anyway, Buddhism kind of collapsed then in India, and the Nalanda Monastery was ruined then. And then the massive ruins, it used to cover 10 acres, or like thousands and thousands of monks, all monks, of course. A couple of probably, I bet a few women pretended to be monks because they were the clever ones. But that's an amazing place, so special. We do special practices there, and we're up to Rajgriha, up to Vulture Peak, where Buddha taught the Heart Sutra. And then we go to Bodh Gaya. Sometimes we used to do the other way around, but never mind, we go to Bodh Gaya, and that's where Buddha got enlightened. And we stay at our wonderful center there called Root Institute. It's a haven, it's beautiful. We go to the main stupa where Buddha got enlightened. And then we drive finally to Varanasi, this ancient city, you know. It's probably the longest occupied city in the world, unbroken, they say. And then go nearby to Sarnath, where Buddha taught his first teaching at Deer Park. And then in Varanasi, people love it. They go to all the shops and buy clothes and get the tailors to make things. And we go to the Ganges, which is wonderful for the Hindus. And we watch the Hindu priests doing their prayers and things. So then we drive and we fly back to Kathmandu, spend another day at the Hyatt and all go home. So it used to be about 20 days. Now it's about 18 or 17, I think. And just in general, just people love it. It's very special. And it raises money for the prison project. I think it's raised like $100,000 over the last 20 years for the prisoners. And we have groups of anything from 15 to 25. So special. So I highly recommend. Book up for 2022. That was a long advertisement. There's the benefit of pilgrimages, Mary Ellen. And it does really touch people's minds. I'm always amazed by that. Always amazed. And the other thing that's so special, and everybody comments on it, everybody bonds with each other. They become so special friends. It's incredible. I've rarely seen anybody be disharmonious. One year, some wacko guy from Los Angeles, who wasn't even a Buddhist, he decided he'd come and he hated me. He made such trouble, him and another woman, but they wouldn't leave. They just made trouble. It was the only time there was any disharmony. Usually people are so harmonious and just love each other. And the very first one we ever did, we had one lady in India who was one of the guides in some area. And she said she was really impressed by that. She said most groups, they fall into cliques very easily. But she said she was really impressed by the fact that everybody was very sweet and harmonious. And it has to be because it's, you know, doing something spiritual. But people have fun. It's not holy. People have real fun, you know. They really enjoy it. Okay. Now we can go. What else, Mary? You want a question and answer? That's what you've got. What else, Mary?
Wonderful.
Something else?
Questions, anyone?
We can leave early. Do a 5-minute meditation and we can leave. We don't have to be all the way till noon, do we? Should we do a meditation? Let's do a meditation.
Yes, please.
Unless Estelia is trying to get a question. Are you trying to stop? You trying to ask me a question, Estelia? Estelia? She's trying to unmute and she can't.
Yeah, okay. Yes,
So
actually, when you say that's why you have to protect you, how can I protect myself in a practical way? How can I protect myself?
If you're living in a suburb and there are rapists around the corner, what would you do? You would leave, baby. So you try to find this is really important. You learn to find a place to live that's reasonable and supportive, and you've got nice people around you. It's very intelligent to do that. You protect yourself. I mean, sometimes some people are more sensitive than others, and people get harmed by spirits, you know, they do. So there are certain practices also you can do. You say mantras. Do you ever do any mantras? Do you know any mantras? What do you do? Like Om Mani Padme Hum, you know, the compassion mantra?
Om Tare Tutare Soha.
Good job.
Many
You're wonderful.
Vanyakum.
Tara is powerful and she will protect you. But also you choose your friends, you choose where you live, you choose the places, you check on that level. If you're more sensitive, you seem very sensitive, you be very careful of that. You choose the right place.
I live in Paris, and I think it's very difficult to find the light here. Or
No, there's
I don't know.
No, you'll find nice places. You look around. You be very careful, okay? And you say Tara mantra every day. All right?
Thank you. Okay.
All right,
Thank
darling.
you.
So let's just do a little kind of meditation, 5 minutes. Again, Mahamudra, just the first part of Mahamudra, which is watching the mind. That's all. It's the first part. Mute yourself, Estella. Estella, mute your thing, darling. That's it. So it's the first part of Mahamudra. And the second part of it is when your mind is stable, you start to check for the I. You can do that part if you like, if it makes sense to you. It's usually a bit puzzling if you don't know what you're doing. We'll just do the simple one of meditating, of focusing on our mind. And all that means is focusing on whatever pops up in your mind. You don't cause the thoughts to come. You don't have conversations with them. You don't try to understand them. You just allow your thoughts to come and go. And you just, with strong determination, you pay attention to whatever arises. Be comfortable and relax and just close your eyes and think of it as a very natural thing. Just watch your thoughts. That's it, for a few minutes. To stay focused, don't space out. Keep your mind very sharp. Just watch the thoughts. So we'll just add some little component to the meditation because we mentioned Tara. So just imagine Tara in front of our clear mind now. Imagine in front of us the embodiment of all the enlightened qualities. And this is where, as we're talking to Dawn, we've all got mind. But we just take different shapes and sizes depending on our karma. Some are really rough, some are really beautiful, some are enlightened, some are nightmarish, some are limited, some are expansive. This is all what we create. We create these shapes and sizes. So we create Tara as well. We create our own Buddha. Our mind is the source. The mind is fundamental. The mind is pure and clear. And it due to virtuous. So virtuous karma and wisdom is what literally manifests eventually as Tara, the Buddha Tara. So the function of Buddha Tara is power, confidence, courage, action, cut through the, success, confidence. We should all do this. Vanessa, you should do this. We all should do Tara. She gives courage and power. And our mind can become Tara due to virtue, due to wisdom. So we visualize she's in front of us and she's like a mirror image of our own potential. She's very blissful, green light body. She's female. So female here is kind of considered like wisdom energy, quick, sharp, cutting through the obstacles energy. That's what Tara is. Green light, blissful face in the bodhisattva aspect, looking totally gorgeous. She's sitting in a left leg drawn in and these multicolored kind of silken clothes. Then her right leg is slightly relaxed on another little multicolored lotus. She's sitting on a multicolored lotus. Her right hand is on her right knee with her hands up. And this gesture of giving. And she's holding with her ring finger and thumb the stem of a blue upara flower that blooms at her right ear. Her left hand is at her, no, it's the other way around. No, that's right. Her left hand is at her heart, fingers pointing up, the mudra of the three jewels. And she's holding another stem of another blue upala flower with her thumb and ring finger at her heart, the fingers up, left hand. That blooms at her left ear. And she's radiantly beautiful. All the qualities of a Buddha, but the aspect of power, success, confidence, courage, cut through the obstacles, self-confidence. We all need this badly. So she's like a mirror image of our own potential, So we just imagine now just blessings coming from her. There's no time to do it fully. So we just imagine from her heart. She sends radiant beams of blue light and enter our heart and fill us completely. And we imagine it purifies all the negative karma of our bodies, all the negative karma of our speech, all the suffering of our body, all the, the inappropriateness of our speech and all the harm we've ever done to sentient beings. So completely purified, full of this radiant blue light. And then feel full because we completely removed all the obstacles to our own success or our own perfection, and full of our own perfection, full of the potential only to benefit others with our body, and the potential only to benefit others with our speech, and the potential of a Buddha's mind, a perfected mind. And everybody possesses this potential. This is our fundamental nature. This is the fundamental nature that determines the character of all beings. So imagine this blue light filling us completely with the perfect body, perfect speech, and perfect mind, our own natural potential, full of this blissful energy. Om Tare Tu Re Swaha. 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 So we're thinking, of course, I forgot to say that Tara is also the manifestation of our Lama's mind. The Lama's mind and Tara, same thing. So now imagine she very happily, imagine the lotuses dissolve into her body, and she very happily comes and sits above our crown. Buddha Tara and our Lama's mind, same thing. And then she very happily dissolves into light and absorbs into us. And we imagine now the body, speech, and mind of Buddha Tara, and the body, speech, and mind of our Lama, and the body, speech, and mind of our own, all become one. Union, oneness, same thing. This is our true nature. This is who we really are. This is our potential. So we imagine we become that. So now you imagine, just for about a minute to finish, You expand yourself, this energy of your body, speech, and mind being perfected, Tara's body, speech, mind. Expand to fill the universe. No thoughts. Vast, clear, blissful. No thoughts. Okay, so now we finish. So remembering every thought we've had stays in the mind. It goes in. We mightn't remember it because we haven't got concentration yet, but there's sowed seeds in the mind. We've programmed our mind. We're just moving ourselves forward in this job of turning ourselves into this marvelous person that we want to become, which is an enlightened being, you know, becoming who we really are. So we delight in all these seeds we planted. So these, may we nourish them from this second forward. So we do become a Buddha as quickly as possible so we can benefit others. Jangchub, Semchog Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ke Guchi, Ke Panyampa, Me Payang, Gong Ne Gong Du Hawashog. Gewa Di, Nudo Dag, Lama Sange Drup Gyone, Drowa Chikyang Marupa, Dei Sala Gurpa Shog. May all our holy lamas live long. We need them badly on this planet. That's it, Mary.
Venerable Robina, a couple more things, excuse me. Ready, everybody?
Can't hear you. Your voice is going. Can't hear you. Huh? Can't hear you.
We would like to offer a mandala.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh, shoot.
Who's going to say it?
I can say it. We can all say it.
In English. It's good to do it in English, Mary.
Okay.
Say it in English.
This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. May my venerable Lama's life be firm. Her white divine actions spread in the 10 directions. May the torch of the teachings of Losong always remain, dispelling the darkness of all beings in the 3 realms. Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayami. We would also like to do your long life prayer, Venerable Robina. Mother of the victorious ones of the 3 times and 10 directions, Dharmakaya, the great bliss embraced by great compassion, my perfect Aryatara, who in an ordinary form are the guide for us, pitiful transmigratory beings left guideless. How kind you are. May all your wishes be instantly fulfilled, and may your life be stable until samsara ends. Almighty One, you who destroy all the enemy of delusions, who reveal the Dharma of scripture and realization, spreading it in the mental continuum of transmigrating beings, thereby eliminating the 2 obscurations, including the imprints. How kind you are. May all your wishes be instantly fulfilled, and may your life be stable until samsara ends. By the blessings of the Guru, the deity, and the Dharma protectors, and unbetraying actions and their results, as well as the truth of ultimate reality, in all my lifetimes, may I only please, and may I never displease for even 1 second the Guru, and may all the vital points of my prayers be fulfilled.
Okay, Mary. Thank you, darling. Thank you, sweetheart. There's Charmaine and her cutter. Thank you, the cutter. Matt has the cutter here, so I'm taking Matt's cutter. Everybody. I'm taking all of yours. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, everybody.